Welcome everyone for this wonderful celebration. Thanks for coming. Thanks for also helping us out with our excess wine supply. The pandemic made a dent in our consumption, so I'm hoping all of you can help us with that issue. It's a real pleasure today to be here to celebrate the naming of the Commons in honor of David Gross and celebrating the generosity of Bhaumik. So I will go ahead and hand this over to our fine Chancellor, Henry Yang. And Henry, you get to go first.
Well, I'm absolutely honored and delighted to come here to join you for this wonderful, wonderful celebration and reception. And, we are now dedicated this most frequently used room of intellectual use of the room to the name of David Gross, our wonderful, respected colleague. So we're going to have this. Now, next time I just say, hey, Lars, I want to meet you. Why don't we meet at Gross Commons? So that's this room here. Every time when I come to KITP, I always found people having coffee, working on the chalkboard, and in that room, that was the most used, busy place, especially in the afternoon. I guess in order to share my joy, I can just tell you a few 30-second stories about David. I don't need to share with you about David's contribution in the science community, the most respected person in the world. I remember in 1997, our search committee, our KITP colleagues told me that we have got one of the top person we would like to invite to recruit. Then we said, okay, go ahead. Then on October 1, the deadline came, and David did not respond. So I said, did he forget? I said, well, let me go to visit him. Listen, no, be patient, don't push. I said, so I got on the next plane, flew to New York, and rented a car, drove to Trinity, remember that place, to Bildsten, take about 2 hours. I forgot how long. I drove as fast as I can. I got there. Then I found David. So we had a talk. And so we walked on campus. David, I hope you don't mind. You were at that time very proud to show me at the library. In the library, next to the library, there's an endowed garden. You said there is a $2 million endowed garden. And this garden, I said, how long it is? Probably 7, 8 months, a year. I said, you come to Santa Barbara, we don't need any endowment. We got a garden all over the place. But anyway, that's not why David came here. But with that sincere invitation, I think the whole campus just elated at the celebration, celebrate that David's coming. Then, of course, later on, David got the Nobel Prize. I still remember that celebration. So I don't need to tell you, you know as well, maybe more than I know about David's scientific contribution. But what about David as an administrator? As director of KITP. I think I also see Jim here. Jim, I want to say a word that the first year I came here, you were originally trying to select the location of here, and we said that the best place is where we have the parking lot now. You went there to see the sunrise, sunset, and eventually you said, no, we want at the entrance. So you picked this place, and no, here we are. And I remember I discussed with you before I went to Princeton to visit David to invite him to come here. Now, come back to David as a director. He always wanted to recruit the top scientists in the world. And I remember one time he was trying to recruit a permanent member, and we did it not. We almost succeeded. Then eventually we did not succeed. We found out we are competing with the person who was trying to retain that person. You remember the Prime Minister of Canada? Yeah. So then I realized whenever David is shooting, he's shooting not just high to the sky, shooting to the universe. Then when he tried to recruit Lars, and so when the whole process finally was done, we were just celebrating. I got a call. The call is coming from the Chancellor of Berkeley. I've never got this kind of phone call. The phone call was not a pleasant one. He said, Henry, I just want to let you know, as a colleague, at least you've got to have the courtesy, blah, 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 and you have violated all the courtesy you're supposed to do. You have gone too far. So I said, thank you. We'll improve in the future. But and so then I realized that when you get this kind of phone call, you are the happiest person in the world. You are the best person. Now look what we have done. I don't have to share with you about what the Lars has contributed. It's just wonderful. And that we probably have more celebration on that. So I think I've used up my time to share with you stories. I still can go on forever. But I also like to take this opportunity to thank Moni Bhaumik for your generosity. Thank you.
Yeah.
Here and for all of your support. None of what's happening here wouldn't be happening if it weren't for you and the administration being so supportive of everything we do. And it makes this job a real pleasure. When there's a difficult time, I know I have your number, and you know I call it, as that of David Marshall. So I think all of us benefit from your appreciation, as well as David's, of the value of what's going on here. And you also recruited David. We still don't have an endowed garden, so we're really here to celebrate David and his impact. So I want to just give a brief perspective on what David accomplished as director. So all of you are more familiar probably with his science, and I would not be the one to summarize that, but I think it's important that all of you understand what in 15 years David really accomplished. He came in 1997 and was director for 15 years. I know what that feels like almost. But he really achieved a remarkable expansion. So the expansion into astrophysics and biophysics, the expansion that allows us for this facility to now accommodate nearly 1,000 visitors long-term per year is really something that David was able to do. That expansion comes with the need to identify resources. David was remarkably adept at working with the National Science Foundation. We continue to have them be our major supporter. But much of what you're seeing here, and much of the support for things beyond the programs and conferences, are really coming from private philanthropy as well as foundations. So the Simons Amphitheater is an example. David really initiated the dialogue with Jim Simons in very early days to get persistent support from the Simons Foundation for us. That's continued to this day, and of course, as you know, Jim and Marilyn were here maybe a year ago? About a little over a year ago to celebrate the naming of the amphitheater, really acknowledge the contribution of the Simons Foundation. I was there last week, and I can say that they still have great respect for all we do, and they're making big impacts across all of science, and for us it's a real privilege to be one of the institutions that they are pledging long-term support to. And that really is a credit to David, seeing that foundation grow and seeing the value in that. Of course, the fact there's a building behind me is due to the fact that David really met Fred Kavli quite early, as did Henry. At the time, we didn't know it would become the Kavli Foundation. It would become as large as it was. Many of you have siblings. You might not have 20. You probably have 2 or 3. David gets the joke. We were the first child of the Kavli Foundation. We were the first institute. We had no idea there would be 20 siblings. That's where we landed. The Kavli Foundation and Fred Kavli in particular really allowed us to build this wing behind me, plus the wing going out to the south, allowed us to have expanded occupancy and really get our numbers high up as we grew into astrophysics and biophysics, which are the 2 disciplines that David felt very strongly needed to have a substantial permanent presence here. at the Institute in terms of our programming. That's also led to the increase in numbers. Now that ability, you would never think you would hire a string theorist, particle physicist as a director, and he would expand the Institute into biophysics and astrophysics. That's what happened. And I think it's really a testimony to David's intellectual excitement, and I would call it sort of ravenous passion for physics, and eagerness to constantly understand what's happening in the field and see where there's new opportunities for physicists to do what they do. And we all respect that as part of who David is. I like to tease him a little bit. You know, KITP Online is a big resource. I like to tease him that the 400 hours a day of people watching KITP Online is probably 10 of David. Because it's, you know, the resource we create here over time has this remarkable value to the community. Now, David's ability to track all of these things also means he has tremendous influence within the community, and he chooses to exert it. He's very responsible for the renaissance of the Solvay conferences in Belgium, which have a big impact in physics, and of course he's been the director of the Jerusalem Winter School for Theoretical Physics for many years, which means all of us are his friends that have served our time running a winter school. I think all of us have had the experience of having our arms twisted. I think Christina's I think suffering the arm twisting right now. But we all have come to view that as an important activity for all of us here, and it's really something that David excels at, which is knowing where to go and knowing who to attract. David also really cares about the future of physics, and the future of physics, of course, are those early in their careers. The Graduate Fellows Program, of which there's now 8 per semester, is David's innovation, and it's something we've continued to do. We've seen the impact of the Graduate Fellows over a long period of time. Of course, those Graduate Fellows don't become graduate students if they didn't have great physics teachers. And so we support the Teachers Conference once per year, where we bring high school teachers here to the Institute, and that's another of David's innovations that's continued to this day. And of course, we also see value in those faculty who are at teaching institutions with heavy teaching load, where the research might be a challenge because they've got 3 classes they're trying to teach. And so the Scholars Program, where we select individuals within the US community who are at heavy teaching load institutions to come here over a 3-year period for up to 6 weeks, is another program that David really initiated and is doing quite well. Okay, so most of those things probably you kind of expected, or you're not surprised by it. But you might be more surprised that this thing that's circling over your head is due to David. David, when he first got here, which was only 2 years before I did, was quite animated about bringing more art into the Institute. And that, over time, has developed relationships with artists, yielding pieces like this and pieces in the Commons. And of course, it allowed us to have a strong relationship with Jean-Pierre Hébert, who's since passed, and was a long-term artist in residence, and really helped us a lot with getting art into the Munger residence. So many of you at the Munger residence hopefully have read the book. You should all have a book available to you, which was our pandemic project, describing the art, and that tells a lot of that relationship. I think, just to sort of close, I really want to say that as director now for less than 15 years, but approaching that, I really want to say the benefit I've experienced from having David as a colleague. So I know Henry was quite concerned, you know, who's going to be the next director, how will I work with David? Well, I've already proven that we could work together because we built this building together, so that's the trial by fire. But David's visionary leadership, but constant nudging. David's great at nudging. So he's not always the first to tell me there's a problem. Sometimes he's the first, but he wants to be first. I know he wants to be first to tell me about a problem. But it's kind of priceless, right? And it's done with that smile that he has of coming up and saying, you know, this lunch is just not as good as when I was director. So, David, thanks for your leadership, your collegiality. It's great to have you as a colleague. Thank you. Okay, I want to introduce Mani. I'll be brief, Mani, but I really want to welcome you back to KITP. And I really want to acknowledge the tremendous generosity you've had for theoretical physics. The establishment of the Bhaumik Center, or Bhaumik Institute for Theoretical Physics at UCLA, many of you hopefully know about it, is a large investment that Mani has made to really enable theoretical physics to prosper. Since that's our mission here at KITP, we do all we can to support anybody else who is on the same mission, and Mani is at the forefront of that support. So Mani, I want to thank you first for all you're doing for theoretical physics. So I also want to thank you for your support here for KITP postdocs. I hope you had a good time. You met with some of them today. Not all of them, because we have many. But I think they really benefit from hearing your life story and your career stories that you have. And I really want to thank you for so graciously making this donation to honor David Gross. So Mani, over to you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and Chancellor. You feel the same way that my best friend David Gross, this is my third, fourth visit, but every time I come here, it seems like it's growing exponentially. And of course, that's nice to see, and I think I have to say that with the help of the Chancellor and David's genius of hiring the director now, is really fantastic. Fundraising, I have not seen anybody with him and Christy to really do such a wonderful job fundraising. And that's why every time I come, it looks like it's growing exponentially. And today we are supposed to also celebrate David's belated 80th birthday. So, and in that connection, I was told to say why I think David is probably the best physicist I ever known. Of course, in this room there are so many luminaries that probably if you switched up the light, you would still be able to see everybody. But David is really an exceptional in that respect. At least, you know, I'm not a quantum field theorist, but from what I know, he really has opened up a couple of areas that has been at the, you know, even though I've been mostly doing experiment before, but being at UCLA for the last 10 years, I've come across all the exceptional theoreticians, especially to the Institute, and I cannot see without, you know, really demeaning anybody that David really has opened up the quantum field theory that to put it on a really very fundamental solid basis. I know that when he started his PhD thesis at Berkeley, at that time, quantum field theory was in a big mess, and all this rage was about the bootstrap mechanism, S matrix, and that S matrix eventually found its place in gravity, but it didn't go anywhere. And of course, working under Jeffrey Chu, he had no choice but to work on bootstrap theory, but he realized pretty soon that it's not really going anywhere, and he was so right, and eventually he came up with the asymptotic freedom that actually put the our Bhaumik standard model in a very solid ground, because it has all the particles have been predicted, right? Has all been detected, and so it's in a very solid ground. And although it is not the end all, and physics never is, there's always something around the corner. But so far, at least the energy range that we have been able to achieve experimentally is really in a very, very solid ground. And that has been possible because of his discovery of the asymptotic freedom that will give rise to the quantum thermodynamics. And of course, it does have a few things still missing, but in spite of that, I think we can take the standard model to a good bank which did not fail. So, but more importantly to me, I work for S.N. Bose, the Bose statistics man, and he was following Einstein, trying to do unification using Kavli's applied theory, which is classical, which we thought they would make a run around the quantum physics, but as you know, Einstein worked 30 years of it, last of his life, trying to solve it, didn't go anywhere, obviously, because he didn't take quantum theory in his mind, but also Bose fell in the same trap. He worked on it, and I was a student about 1953 when Dirac came actually to visit him and first heard about quantum field theory from him. And after 54, I guess, Bose thought he has something to show to Einstein, so he sent it to him, and shortly before his death actually, and he said, no good. So Bose actually left academia after that and went to administration, in universities. But from that time, the unification has been my love of life, so to speak, because how can you think of anything else? And the first indication came from David's work of asymptotic freedom that at lower, at a smaller distances, the quarks almost act as free and particle, and so the standard, the strength of the strong force is so high compared to electromagnetic force at ambient combination. Nobody thought that they could emerge, but asymptotic freedom says that the strong force start to diminish, and in fact also they're using the same basic theory, the Yang-Mills renormal gauge theory. So naturally indicated that it will take to unification, and so actually when they plotted the major quantities at a low temperature, lo and behold, they do actually march together, and gravity comes from its peak value to its about the same strength. So that's at least an indication that unification really is going to happen. And I don't know that any physicist doesn't believe today that unification is eventually going to happen. And so we have David to thank for really showing the way. In fact, I guess Freeman Dyson said that the strong force should not be understood in a Yeah, a century, and David did that in a decade. That's good. And also the unification that again I said Einstein and Professor was both worked last 30 years, so I didn't get it, but David has shown the way that yes, there is hope in there. So thank you, David, who has not only been the best person I know, or he has so many luminaries, but he is the one that I had an opportunity to get to know his depth of knowledge, and to me, he has done more than anybody else in physics that I know of, and so I have no compunction to say that. But in addition, he really has been very helpful in terms of helping the cause of physics throughout the world. As you know, he's still a sitting member of the China's, everybody has left, but he still is there as a member of the Chinese Academy of Physics. And, but I have personally known him, how he has helped the cause of physics in India. In fact, ICGS, which is the International Center for Theoretical Studies, was started by one of the person that knows, Spender Wadia. And as you know, India is right now the most populous country, so they have to retire early. You have to retire at 55 no matter what. So, but David took the initiative. Really, that was quite a I should say, adventurous for him, in a sense, to see the Prime Minister, to see if he would continue the work. And, but he finally got through, but no go. He said no, and yet he actually was hiring retired people for his own personal staff. But still, that's only one example, but from the extreme one. But David has been very involved in the activity there. And I have a little foundation in India called Bhaumik Educational Foundation. I went there about 2000, year 2000, and saw that out of the 200,000 students that graduated from high school there, the top 100, about half of them are from the villages. But there is no high school, apart from high school, no university or anything like that. And so I thought maybe I should really help these guys. And so really, even though it was not a big institution, David was kind enough to help out, encourage the students. And in fact, one of the students who was pulling rickshaw on his foot in the street of Calcutta, and he didn't have any money to go to school. But now he's a doctor. Now he has a big mansion, but he still has his rickshaw in front of the house to remind him where he came from. And in fact, David's wife, you were very moved by that. But the thing is that even for a small function like that, David lent his hand and his inspiration that you have to be ambitious to get into it. So David, I really appreciate and thank you for giving me the opportunity to express my deep regard. But I feel like I'm speaking to the choir because everybody knows what David does. So anyway, thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Okay, well, David, I guess you get the last word. The words.
So one of the advantages, or perhaps disadvantages, of getting on in years is that there are a lot of anniversaries, many of which are equal to 0 mod 5, or mod 25, or mod 50, or we're lucky mod 100. And this year is kind of special, actually. This year is the 50th anniversary of QCD, Economic Freedom. And so I'm going around the world actually giving lectures, 50 years of QCD. Maybe I should give a book. That would be good.
Nudge received.
Nudge received. But in any case, unfortunately, Craig couldn't manage the screen here, otherwise you'd be subject to that thought right now. I'll spare you. But, you know, so I'm looking back 50 years or more. I realized that in 1973, quantum mechanics was 50 years old. And if I think of myself in 1973, quantum mechanics was ancient history, of which I knew actually at that time very little. Now I know a lot more. I'm very interested in history of physics, but it's awfully far back. And I imagine for some of you, 1973 seems awfully far back, but to me it's almost yesterday. A lot has happened in 50 years, and so there are other anniversaries. QCD is 50 years old, quantum mechanics is plus or minus 100 years old. KITP is 25 years old. I came here 25 years ago as Henry remarked. That's another mod 25 celebration. Nobel Prize is 20 years old. This is quite a year. I look forward to many more, at least mod 5, if not mod 25, 50, 100, who knows. Henry remarked about coming to KITP and all the stories he loves to tell about coming to Princeton to recruit me, which was incredibly unusual. It's probably true, I forget the details, that I didn't accept the offer before he came. But maybe that was just negligence. But it could be that I wanted to actually talk to him. You know, I was not a great negotiator. My starter package, I remember, was $50K, which, by the way, I donated to keep Polchinski here under a threat 2 years later, whenever he saw it. I wasn't good at that kind of thing, but I was very interested in meeting the Chancellor and telling him what my plans were. And I remember our walk up to the faculty club, where I took Henry to lunch by the endowed garden. And I started telling him what all my plans were. There were a lot of them. There were roughly double the things I actually achieved. Some of them didn't work out. I just wanted to see what his reaction was. And if you know Henry, you probably can predict what his reaction was. It wasn't absolutely, it's a great idea, we'll do it. But it certainly wasn't, no, that's it. Or it was very interesting, and I realized that Henry was somebody I could work with. As it turned out to be the case, he really helped me pursue those ideas that made sense, and well, those that didn't make sense, you know, I realized didn't make sense. So that's the real story. I used what little bargaining power I was willing to exert to test. And you passed.
I remember.
You remember the 4 things? I think there were more. We can discuss that later. In any case, the fact that we met in India and the kind of efforts that I've done around the world, they really started again with KITP. I mean, I thought that this is an incredibly powerful institution. The way we do things here that is very years, 25 years, whatever, more and more people who come here realize how great it is. Wouldn't it be great if my country or my university or my state had something similar? So there have been many attempts around the world to construct similar institutes, similar programs, even at Princeton, where I tried before I came here to do something like this.
Oh, that's an angry Princeton person saying that.
And didn't succeed. But shortly after I left, there was the Bildsten, called the Princeton Center for Theoretical Science and Physics, right? So it's been a lot of fun and enjoyable and somewhat successful in trying to educate the rest of the world about the advantages of having institutes like this around the world. And I've been involved in many in Europe, the United States, South America, China, in Asia, and in India. Perhaps the one I'm most proud of is the ICTS in Bangalore. So, in an occasion like this, aside from everything else, you're supposed to thank people, and I have a lot of people to thank here. Of course, my colleagues at the Institute, permanent members, Boris, and Leon, and Lars, and Chancellor Yang, who's been instrumental in making this a success, really unwavering support. And my colleagues in the physics department, friends I see here who don't have an official designation, of course my wife. And finally Mani, who gave such a lovely speech, thank you, and is also an extremely generous supporter and fan of physics around the world. So, thank you. So thank you all for this uncommon honor. You know, when I came here and we extended the building, part of the idea was to create this space here. So before we made the extension to the building, this was essentially the parking lot. You just couldn't use it. It was noisy and dirty, and cars passing through. It was unusable. Part of the plan that we came up with, and we had this incredible architect, Michael Graves, who Jim arranged to be the architect of the original building and the extension. Unfortunately, he's passed away. We created this incredible space. And I always wanted to put this mobile here, as Lars said, that took many years. We finally got a roof that worked. This is a wonderful space. And for years, I kept telling people, look, you're in the Commons room. There's coffee and cookies, but everybody's so crowded. Open the doors and go out. I would open the doors and try to push people out. But the cookies were there. Nothing was here. Then the pandemic happened. Then you had to go outside. Outside you could, after a while, remove your mask, and you would be free and maskless. So we now serve coffee and cookies outside. Great. Except now, I really want everyone to go into the favorite gross common room. So I have to think of some way of doing that. Mosquitoes, bird poop, Any suggestions are welcome. In any case, thank you. I'm deeply honored, and thanks for this lovely occasion.
Okay, well that, as far as I know, ends our official ceremony. We still have wine and there's still food. So everybody, please enjoy the rest of your evening. And thanks for joining us.